Not too long ago, I heard someone saying that the Rosita was almost like a Negroni if the Negroni was actually good, and while I thought this was pretty funny and also a good hook to catch people's attention on social media, it is far from my truth. I love a good Negroni, but it's true that the Rosita is a wonderful cocktail and we don't see it often enough. So let's change that. We're gonna make one today and then I guarantee you will understand why it is such a tasty treat. Let's go. Alright, so for many, the Rosita is considered a Tequila Negroni, but I believe this is a misleading comparison. While it is true that both cocktails include spirit, Campari, and Vermouth, the ratios are completely different and there's 2 more ingredients in the Rosita than there is in a Negroni. So saying this is almost like saying that the last word is like a daiquiri with gin instead of rum plus maraschino and chartreuse. If you know what a daiquiri is, it might help you to understand what the last word will taste like, but it's a little bit of a stretch. It's definitely more than just a Tequila Negroni. The cooked agave notes come through prominently at first. The Reposado Tequila's balance between sweet and spicy aging notes, along with the bright crisp citrus undertone, plays a huge role in defining this cocktail. That's why it's going to be important to use the good stuff. The Campari and Vermouth add layers of complexity, bringing a touch of sweetness, acidity, and lightly bitter herbaceous finish. So, for lack of a better word, it is a very smooth cocktail. Now, in terms of the history, the Rosita cocktails, like so many others, was popularized in the early 2000s by legend Gary Regan. In 2005, one of his friends introduced him to the Rosita, saying that he saw it in one of Terry Sullivan's article. Sullivan and Gaz were friends, so he reached out to ask him where he got this recipe from, but he didn't remember. 2 years later, Gaz wanted to use the Rosita for an event and he really wanted to know where the recipe was coming from. So he reached back to Sullivan and then he remembered that he picked the recipe from Gary Regan's own book, The Bartender's Bible, published in 1991. So obviously quite surprised, Gaz went back to his notes and then he realized that he picked up the recipe from another book, a 1988 edition of the old Mr. Boston official bartender's manual, which for decades has been a Bible for bartenders, found almost on every bar back to help momentary memory lapses. Speaking of which, you can also download my own bartender's Bible with more than 100 recipes for free. The link's gonna be in the description. Then further research revealed that the earliest mention of the Rosita was in a 1974 edition of the same book. The creator remains unknown to this date, but it is believed to have originated in the 1970s. In his book, Gary Regan adapted the recipe slightly by increasing the amount of tequila and adding a dash of bitters. The result is a perfectly balanced cocktail, even better than its already delightful predecessor. So now, let's make it. First, let's start with the tequila. I recommend using a high-quality Reposado that's additive-free. This is the star of the show, so don't cut corners and use the good stuff. So we're gonna start with 1.5 ounces or 45 ml of it in our mixing glass. Now we're gonna add the Campari, and unlike a Negroni, we're using only 1/2 ounce or 15 ml of it. And this for me is where the cocktail stands out and where I say that the creator really understood the balance needed. Since tequila is much sweeter than gin, if we would use the same amount of Campari as in a Negroni, it would result in an overly sweet drink, but now it's gonna be perfectly balanced. So we're gonna add our 1/2 ounce or 15 ml of it. In line with this idea, we're gonna add 1/2 ounce of Sweet Vermouth, 1/2 ounce of Dry Vermouth. Now, here's a little pro tip. Sometimes I like to use Fino Sherry instead of Dry Vermouth in my Rosita. It dries the cocktail just a little bit more and it lowers the botanical notes in the cocktail, which allows the tequila to shine even more, and I really like it. So Fino Sherry or Dry Vermouth in your Rosita, the choice is yours. Both are wonderful. Now we're gonna add 1 dash of Angostura bitters, fill the mixing glass with ice, stir it for 20 to 30 seconds. In a rocks glass, we're gonna add a beautiful chunk of clear ice. Strain the cocktail over the fresh ice. Express a lemon zest across the top. I like to make a disc with it. Garnish the drink with the zest. And there you have it, the Rosita. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to subscribe before we go, and we're gonna see each other again next week. Cheers.